Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, we're going to kind of take a 35,000-foot view of a bunch of stuff that's happening at the Supreme Court. And what you may not know is there is a whole bunch of activity that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks before the nation's highest court. Now, we know they've already taken two Second Amendment cases. One is Wolford v. Lopez, case that I really don't think is going to have a very broad application to a lot of folks nationwide. The other one is United States versus Hamani, an issue that needs to be decided, not the right case to do it. So, of course, the question is does the Supreme Court actually have the bandwidth for any more Second Amendment cases? Well, one would hope so, because we have a lot of really big issues that are pressing right now before the Supreme Court, and they're all coming up for conference in the next couple of weeks. So today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about the two most important days for the Second Amendment. Okay, America, we are going to be talking about a whole slew of petitions involving very critical Second Amendment rights that are coming up for conference before the United States Supreme Court. Translation, are they going to get the thumbs up and actually get to be argued before the Supreme Court, or the thumbs down, get sent back down to the lower court, and in many instances those terrible rulings will remain? The inspiration for this video comes from an article that I first started reading at bearingarms.com, which means if you're not checking them out, you will get to do so because we'll have a link down below, and you should. I then went over to the Duke Center for Firearms Law, one of the best resources out there for ongoing Supreme Court litigation. Congratulations, kudos to the folks over at Duke. And what we've come up with is a long list of cases. We're going to kind of go through them in rapid fire fashion, but America, I want you to circle two dates on the calendar here, okay? The first one is 1 week from today, Friday, November 14th. We got a lot of huge cases up there. And then I really want you to circle Friday, November 21st, because that too is a huge day. When you see all the cases that we're talking about, you'll understand the significance of both of those conferences. Okay. Now, before we actually get to the cases that might have a chance of being accepted, I would like to draw everyone's attention to a case that actually had a conference today. Not sure how it went. We'll check the orders list on Monday. This is the case of DeWild versus Bondi, an interesting issue. This case argues that the American public is entitled under the Second Amendment to access to M16 automatic weapons. We're going to do a separate video. It's an interesting argument, and we'll try to get that video out before the Supreme Court probably summarily rejects it. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to break down all the other cases based upon some very important issues, okay? Now, the first one is the restriction on those 18, 19, and 20 years old from possessing certain types of firearms, or what we find in 18 United States Code, Section 922B1 and 922C1. On November 14th, the following cases are scheduled for conference: McCoy versus the ATF, West Virginia Citizens Defense League versus the ATF, Paris v. Lara, and NRA v. Glass. We have actually covered every one of those cases in one degree or another, and this is why this is a huge issue. Is because if ever there's an issue where there is a circuit split, it is on this issue. There is a complete tapestry of federal gun laws or application of federal gun laws, depending on what circuit you live in. If ever there was an issue that the United States Supreme Court really does need to take right this minute, it actually would be this issue. Now, I know for many of my viewers, this issue is not nearly as pressing as some of the other issues we're going to discuss here later in the video. But yeah, there are some very big cases set for November 14th. Now, there's another huge issue. I'm not sure it has a lot of interest from my viewers, but this is a big issue. As a matter of fact, there is no single Second Amendment issue that has more cases currently on petition than the challenges to 18 United States Code Section 922G1. We call it the felon in firearms rule, but it really is a disarmament of any person who was ever convicted of an offense in which they could have been sentenced to more than a year. Now, as of today, November 7th, when you're watching this video for the first time, the following cases already had a conference this morning: Fontalangansi versus the United States out of the Fifth Circuit, Flores versus the United States out of the Fifth Circuit, Moore versus the United States out of the Fifth Circuit, Lee versus the United States out of the 10th Circuit, Wise versus the United States out of the Third Circuit, Robinson versus the United States out of the Fifth Circuit, Acosta versus the United States out of the Second Circuit, and Red versus the United States out of the Fourth Circuit. Okay, but then when we go to November 14th, I want you to understand that each one of these cases is before the United States Supreme Court for a conference, again on a challenge to 18 United States Code Section 922G1, which would affect people who have long ago been convicted of a non-violent felony or some other offense that could have resulted in more than a year in jail. These cases are all up for conference. Staley versus the United States out of the 11th Circuit, Barrow versus the United States out of the 5th Circuit, Jones versus the United States out of the 11th Circuit, Thomas versus the United States out of the 5th Circuit, Osborne versus the United States out of the 4th Circuit, Sullivan versus the United States out of the 5th Circuit, Lusk versus the United States out of the 5th Circuit, Guyton versus the United States out of the 5th Circuit, Ferris versus the United States out of the 10th Circuit, Reese versus the United States out of the 10th Circuit, Law versus the United States out of the 3rd Circuit. A very interesting case because the only issue presented in that one are as-applied challenges, even legally permissible to this particular statute. And Mancuso versus New York out of the New York Court of Appeals. So that one involves a state law that also restricts similar to what the federal statute does as well. Also, on both November 14th and November 21st, there is a litany of cases also challenging the constitutionality of 18 United States Code Section 922G. This is the prohibition on illegal aliens possessing firearms. Not sure any one of those will be actually accepted. We're not going to list all of those cases for purposes of brevity, but I do want to talk to you about something that's going to occur on November 21st because it's big. And I'm talking about the conference on the granddaddy of them all, Duncan v. Bonta. Now, this is where we are actually getting to some of the issues that I know most of my viewers are very passionate about. So let's talk about magazine bans as well as assault weapon bans, because there are cases before the United States Supreme Court. We're going to talk about 4 of them. The granddaddy of them all when it comes to magazine bans is Duncan v. Bonta. If ever there was a case that deserves to be accepted by the United States Supreme Court, like right now, like yesterday, it would be Duncan v. Bonta. That is scheduled for conference on November 21st. There is another magazine ban case currently before the United States Supreme Court. That is the case of Gators Customs Guns versus State of Washington. We just did this video about the state's response brief. That has not been set for conference yet. Then, when it comes to assault weapon bans, currently, what is sitting on petition before the United States Supreme Court is NAGR v. Lamont, a challenge to Connecticut's assault weapon ban. No conference scheduled on that case yet, as well as Viramontes v. Cook County. We actually covered Cook County's very nasty reply brief right here. That too has not yet been scheduled for conference as of the moment we recorded this video. So America, we got a couple of really, really big days coming up for the future of the Second Amendment in this country on both Friday, November 14th, as well as 1 week later, Friday, November 21st. Tell us what you think. Should we do some live WGL AMs on Monday morning when we can go through the orders list and see what happened, who got the thumbs up and who's got the thumbs down? If you guys are interested, we'll think about doing it. All right, listen, we'll go ahead and link up the article from Bearing Arms down there. We'll link up the Duke Center for Firearms Law down there as well. Listen, if you got any questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. But if you don't, that's okay. That information down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should be doing around here, you click on that link and you tell us all about it. If you want to subscribe to the monthly newsletter, there's a link in the description box for you to do that. And then finally, and most importantly, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe. Why in the year 2024 should anybody even think about having self-defense protection? Because, 25 years ago, we would have never had this conversation. So what's different today?
Bill, we really saw a need a number of years ago when the volatility and divisiveness of our country started to change drastically. And we, by the way, are gun people protecting gun people. We
Right.
come from a significant significant gun background.
Right to bear. That's right. Legal protection for self-protection. Listen, good lawyers aren't cheap. Cheap lawyers aren't good. You're not truly prepared unless you have right to bear back you. You will always get an attorney-answered hotline, so you will always have a confidential phone call. There are no cap limits for either civil or criminal defense. This covers all forms of self-defense. So from a fist to a firearm, from a fat lip to a dead body, you are covered, and you will have some of the nation's most passionate 2A attorneys in your corner fighting for you. And right now, if you visit my friends at protectwithbear.com and you use the promo code WGL, you will receive 10% off. Listen, you need to protect yourself so that you can protect them. Visit my good friends at protectwithbear.com.